Welcome to Eye on America. I'm Michelle Miller. Today we meet some of America's heroes who devote their lives to help keep us safe. In California, we follow Smokejumpers to see how they fight remote wildfires. And in North Carolina, we tour a new aviation museum named after legendary hero and pilot Sully Sullenberger. But we begin in Tennessee, where a new law to protect victims of domestic violence recently took effect. It's the first law of its kind to mandate GPS monitoring of the most violent offenders. Meg Oliver has more details about the groundbreaking law.
Wilson County 911, where is your emergency?
There's a man trying to shoot a woman with a shotgun.
On April 12, 2021, outside Nashville, Debbie Sisko and her daughter Marie Varsos were shot and killed by Marie's estranged husband, who later took his own life.
3 people are dead after a murder-suicide in Lebanon.
Sean Varsos broke into his mother-in-law's house where Marie was staying. He had guns, zip ties, and battery acid, ready to hunt them down. Varsos was out on bail after strangling his wife and threatening her with a gun the month before.
Yeah, he went running that way, had a shotgun.
I remember, screaming, it was very emotional.
Alex Yon is Marie's brother and Debbie's son.
2 people that I love dearly were just very quickly ripped out of my life.
Judges can require GPS as a condition of bail, but often don't.
Varsos was considered enough of a threat that the judge had the ability to require a GPS tracking device put on him, but he didn't. Why not?
That's a question, for the judge. It's one that infuriates me. My sister, my mother.
Jan turned his pain and anger into a successful push for mandated GPS tracking of aggravated assault offenders in domestic violence cases. Tennessee's new law is called the Debbie and Marie Domestic Violence Protection Act.
Do you believe if Varsos had been wearing a GPS tracking device that your mother and sister would still be alive today?
Absolutely.
Domestic violence is everywhere.
Jennifer Wendell is with the Battered Women's Justice Project.
How likely is it for, a high-risk suspect to repeat their actions?
When there's firearms at play, when there's strangulation, when there's elevated stalking, they're more likely to do it again.
Here's how it works. Victims are notified through a phone app or an electronic device when an offender violates an order of protection. That can mean moving within a certain radius of the victim or breaching an exclusion zone like their house. When that happens, victims can receive multiple alerts like texts, emails, and a monitoring service calls law enforcement.
Every second matters.
Ray Gandalf is helping to lead the charge on using GPS technology as a safety tool.
They can look for help. They can find cover. They can position themselves in a safe place, lock themselves in a place where they have the opportunity to call 911 and to get help dispatched to them immediately.
Is that the difference between life and death?
Certainly.
Alex has made sure the names of Debbie Sisko and Marie Varsos live on.
I'm hopeful that other states would be able to look at this and maybe adopt it moving forward.
All it takes is the will of lawmakers to use the technology of today to prevent the tragedies of tomorrow.
We continue on the topic of gun violence, which was recently declared a public health crisis by the Surgeon General. Firearm deaths among American children rose 46% from 2019 to 2022. The alarming rise has led many doctors to start a dialogue with patients about safe gun storage. Nikki Batiste meets with physicians who are coming up with approachable ways to have a potentially awkward but possibly life-saving conversation.
This gun range may feel a world away from a doctor's office, but these are medical professionals training to save lives by learning about guns.
I felt like I had a real deficit in talking about firearms with patients.
We sat in on the class Dr. James Bigham teaches at Max Creek Gun Range in Wisconsin.
First thing I want to start off with is the bullet.
with shop and gun owner Steve DeRazio.
That's part of being the responsible gun owner, is knowing right from wrong.
A primary care doctor and professor at the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine, Dr. Bigham asks his patients about how they store their weapons in routine visits.
People may feel it's too personal, but as a physician, I absolutely think I have the space to say we got to be doing everything we can to protect our children, our communities.
In 2018, the NRA tweeted regarding this topic that doctors should stay in their lane. What's your response to that?
Yeah, I think this is our lane. As a primary care doctor, if I'm willing to counsel you on alcohol consumption, tobacco use, how you're driving your car, I got to be talking about firearms as well.
Is this a Second Amendment issue?
I don't think so. I mean, we have the right to bear arms. I sell guns. That's the last thing I want to do is take away my guns. It's not about taking away, it's about safety, and that's it.
Nearly 500 people a year die from accidental shootings. Gun suicides are at an all-time high for adults, and suicide rates for children have risen dramatically. Access to unlocked firearms in homes makes suicide nearly 4 times more likely. There are about 30 million children across the country living in homes with guns.
Studies show a child as young as 3 has the strength to pull this trigger.
Pediatricians at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia say asking parents about safe gun storage is as important as asking about bike helmets and pool safety.
Are there any guns at home?
Dad is in the Army, so there is one, but we actually got a lock here for it.
To share your experiences.
Dr. Dorothy Novick is also teaching these soon-to-be doctors how to broach the triggering topic.
All of the injury prevention safety counseling that we offer, we now wrap firearms right into that conversation to really make it normal.
The hospital provides these gun locks to families, one step in making homes safer.
This is really a conversation about safety. This is not a question about politics or ideology. And in fact, people from all across the ideological spectrum all agree that firearm safety is really a fundamental tenet of responsible firearm ownership.
Critical care, starting with a life-saving conversation.
Coming up, we investigate a troubling threat that's facing firefighters nationwide. This is Eye on America. Welcome back. Firefighter jobs are dangerous enough as it is, but there's a hidden risk with their equipment that's been linked to cancer. Mark Strassman learns why many firefighters say they worry more about their gear and foam than smoke and flames.
In small-town Bellbrook, Ohio, firefighter Jay Leach feels burned.
Most firefighters that got in this job knew it's an inherited risk, but we never knew that the gear and the equipment that we're using is killing us.
Inside Fire Station 22, Lieutenant Leach helped remove buckets of firefighting foam. It's called AFFF, undeniably effective, but laced with PFAS, so-called forever chemicals now linked to various cancers, especially among firefighters.
Cancer caused 72% of active duty firefighter deaths last year, according to the International Association of Firefighters. A separate study showed smoke inhalation causes 4% of active duty firefighter deaths.
A safer foam now exists, and 21 states have introduced policies that limit the use of AFFF firefighting foam. But for Jay Leach, cancer's heartache has no limits.
You said you wanted to show me something.
I do. I keep my wife with me and my helmet. There's a picture of her in there.
Oh, yeah. So you wear that whenever you go on a call?
Mm-hmm.
His wife, Tracy, was a firefighter for 25 years. Her diagnosis in 2017, breast cancer, despite no family history of cancer.
It pretty much ravaged her body. And then December of 2022, she was diagnosed terminally. And 2 weeks later, on Christmas Eve, she passed away.
You can't conclusively prove it.
Correct.
But in your gut.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly believe that PFAS caused my wife's cancer.
In a statement, the American Chemistry Council, an industry group, said it supports limits on using AFFF, adding all PFAS are not the same. It is not scientifically accurate or appropriate to group them together when considering safety risks. But for Jay Leach, this moment was cathartic, dropping off buckets of AFFF for destruction. Tens of thousands of gallons of it sit in fire stations across America. Ohio is the first state committed to destroying all of it. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine.
This gives us an alternative.
Sitting there, which does nobody any good.
Does no one any good. You know, it might leak out. There's a danger whenever you have a product like that.
Another worry. PFAS have been inside firefighting gear for decades. PFAS help repel water and contaminants, but put on this gear and you're wrapping yourself inside suspected carcinogens.
We sweat, our pores open up, and the forever chemicals can go in our body.
19 years into this job, are you more scared of fires or are you more scared of cancer?
Cancer, absolutely. I love the job, but at the end of the day, I sit and think, is it worth it?
They realize the irony, scared of what's supposed to protect them.
We continue with a look at how an elite group of firefighters handle their duties in remote areas. Smoke jumpers are often called to fight flames in places not accessible by roads, parachuting from the sky into raging fires. CBS News Bay Area's Itai Had takes to the sky to see how these brave heroes leap into action.
The whole thing is a pure adrenaline rush.
When 33-year-old Cole Skinner says he'll be dropping by his workplace, he means it literally. For the last 4 years, this has been his commute. A 3,000-foot death-defying dive with views that are hard to beat.
Check my canopy!
Cole is part of an elite group of firefighters that's been operating in places where roads don't exist.
Road release, cutaway, reserve, lower RSL.
Called Smokejumpers, they parachute directly into the flames. When the siren sounds, they pack on their gear and load onto a short C-23 Sherpa plane.
We have about 2 minutes to get our jump gear on, and then we're boarded onto the planes in less than 10 minutes.
Becoming a smoke jumper isn't for the faint of heart. Candidates must be in top physical shape and have some firefighting experience. Their missions are often miles away from civilization, which is why they bring everything they need with them. Their gear can often weigh up to 120 pounds. How hot does it get in one of these things?
Incredibly hot.
Smoke jumping dates back to 1939, when the U.S. Forest Service realized it needed to stop remote fires before they became too big to handle. In all, there are about 400 smoke jumpers in the U.S., but as climate change intensifies, their jobs have become more demanding.
I experienced stuff that I had never seen before.
Mitch Hokinson is the Reading base manager and a smoke jumper for 25 years. He says these days fire seasons are getting longer and longer.
Normally fire season wouldn't start till June. Now it's starting end of April.
The daily grind can be both dangerous and physically demanding. And that's exactly why Cole says the moment he heard about the program, he jumped at the chance to join.
No one else gets to parachute out of a plane to go fight fire, and that's what we do here. It was a dream, and when it came true, it was everything it was supposed to be.
And now that he's landed the perfect job,
oh yeah, baby!
The sky is no longer the limit.
Let's get it!
Ahead, we visit the new museum dedicated to the miracle on the Hudson. That story is next. We close our show honoring a hero. It's been more than 15 years since Captain Chesley Sully Sullenberger made an emergency landing on New York's Hudson River, saving all 155 lives aboard the flight. A new museum in North Carolina, where that fateful flight was headed, revisits that day. Nancy Cheng gets an exclusive tour from Captain Sully himself.
When you stand here today and you look up at this, is it a good feeling?
Oh, absolutely. It's actually bigger than I remembered. I haven't seen it for a while. But yeah, it feels
He was good.
We heard people say that they heard the sound of an engine explosion and that this appeared to be a controlled landing by the pilot.
The fact that it landed relatively flat, I think, is more than just good luck.
A decade and a half after he landed Flight 1549 on the Hudson River, Chesley Sullenberger, known to the world as simply Captain Sully, calls this Airbus A320 an old friend.
You were sitting right there.
Right there, left front seat.
The aircraft now on display in Charlotte, North Carolina's Sullenberger Aviation Museum, along with other tokens from that January 2009 journey.
You think about how the day started for you that day when you put that uniform on.
That day started literally like 10,000 other days. I had never experienced the failure of even a single engine. And at that point in my career, I thought it was unlikely it ever would happen to me. I was wrong.
They had just taken off from New York's LaGuardia Airport when they hit a flock of Canada geese. With no engine power, Sullenberger and First Officer Jeff Skiles guided the aircraft onto their only option, the water. All 155 people on board remarkably made it out alive.
It's been 15 years now. Do you still think of it often?
Yeah, I get almost daily reminders, good ones, when people recognize me and thank us for what we achieved that day.
Has your perception of what happened that day changed as you reflect?
Yes, it has, substantially. You know, early on, I had said in interviews that I thought we were doing our jobs. But I think now with the passage of time, it's apparent that we all did our jobs exceedingly well that day, better than probably could have been expected under those circumstances.
Deemed the miracle on the Hudson, it was celebrated around the world as a sign of hope.
You got any ideas? Actually, no.
Hollywood came knocking too. Sullenberger's actions inspired Clint Eastwood's Sully, starring Tom Hanks. Letters from all 7 continents also poured in, many now on display at the museum, carefully collected by Sullenberger's wife, Lori.
You read these letters out loud to your children, to your kids as a family. Why did you read those letters out loud?
We were really reading them to Sully for him to understand.
I hadn't seen any of them at that point.
And so we were trying to give him a sense of how the world was receiving the accident. I think it was still haunting him, the whole accident itself. And so that was the other part of reading the letters. He needed to work his way through all of that. And the letters were a really helpful way to do that.
For Sullenberger, the miracle also represented 208 seconds of agony and the unbearable hours-long wait for confirmation that everyone survived.
You've also talked about dealing with mental health struggles immediately after the incident. Does this museum and donating some of these artifacts provide some sense of closure in that?
Oh, absolutely it does. And yeah, we all on the airplane and our families experienced a very stressful event that could have been catastrophic. But with time, I finally achieved the kind of insight I needed to put my mind at rest. And that was that we had done the best we could. That was our solace then, and it remains our solace now.
A year after the flight, Sullenberger retired from U.S. Airways, but he continues to champion aircraft safety today, something the Sullenberger Aviation Museum highlights, along with a rich history of flight itself and a peek at its future, with an emphasis on introducing children to STEM education.
To Flight 1549, here, here.
Here. On hand for its opening, passengers from Charlotte-bound Flight 1549.
Yeah, that's me right there. And that's Mike.
Many remain in touch with one another and Sullenberger.
These are my shoes that I took off before I jumped into the Hudson.
That includes Barry Leonard, whose personal items, including the Yankees hat he was wearing that day, are now on display.
Why did you want to donate your belongings?
Because I want people that visit here to really get a human aspect on what this is all about. So you see these things that were in my closet for 15 years, and then to actually see them here, which I didn't expect them to, is just overwhelming and very emotional.
Yeah. Why is that?
Because we all know that we could have not made it. Yeah.
Their reunion, a reminder of the extraordinary experience these 155 people went through together.
What do you hope that future generations take away from this space?
That we each have obligations to each other as citizens, because it's when we work together we solve big problems, when we share common values, common purpose, and a common humanity.
A miracle extending far beyond the Hudson.
For more stories like these and live coverage of breaking news, stream us right here on CBS News 24/7. I'm Michelle Miller. Thank you for watching Eye on America.